Hey there folks, welcome back once again for an exciting new video. Got Patrick here with me.
Hey.
And I'm Thomas, and we are going to be talking to you today about the real estate market. And what about the market, Patrick?
So this week we're going to be talking about whether there is a housing bubble, and if so, when will it burst?
But before we launch into that, as always, if you love real estate, you love talking about houses, you love dogs, maybe you just want to get some, kind of amateur real estate advice on investing, feel free to hit that subscribe button down below because we're going to be posting great content like this every single week. So just as a disclaimer on this before we launch in, Patrick and I are not economists. We are not lenders. We are licensed real estate agents in the state of Oregon and Washington and Oregon. And, the nature of what we are talking about here is really just our opinion. So take it with a grain of salt. And if you want to chat more, we're happy to discuss it with you. But, you'll always want to kind of consult with the experts on these things. We're just experts in real estate. Really, to understand, I think, how this market is different from the market that we saw back, in the last massive housing crisis. I think it's important to really look at the differences between the two and really examine why it is that we're in such a fervent market. So back in the early 2000s, I think one of the major contributors that we saw to home buyers buying in such, I would say, irresponsible sort of ways was not at the fault of the home buyers even themselves, but the lending practices that were surrounding it were really truly the irresponsible part of it. They were so lax at that time. There's a term called ninja lending, which is no income, no job, no assets. And people were getting loans without any of those things in place. Of course, when we saw this massive, recession in all these industries, all of a sudden people were foreclosing on their homes. We saw a lot of properties go back on the market, properties that, and we'll get into this later, but were in tremendous deferred maintenance, and it just worked havoc on the market. So that's one big contributing factor to the difference there between now and then.
So I think one of the other things sort of tying along with the lending practices is the type of loans that we saw then versus now. During or leading up to the crash before, we saw almost 60% of loans had some sort of adjustable rate tied to them. And now it's less than 1% of loans that we're seeing this year that have any sort of adjustable rate. And so, as folks experience any issues maybe with their employment, their home is not as at risk because they're not as impacted by even slight fluctuations in the rates.
And an adjustable rate mortgage, for everyone's context, the difference between a traditional conventional mortgage and an adjustable rate is that an adjustable rate mortgage gives you a rate lock. So your rate at the time that you purchase and lock that rate for a short period, somewhere in the ballpark of 5 to 10 years, depending on which program you go with. And then every single year subsequent to that, there was a rate adjustment. So whatever the rate is at that point, that's the rate you're getting, which is not a great deal, but it is an option. It was an option that was presented to a lot of people who maybe didn't qualify for the stricter loans that had better programs available, where you just lived with the same rate the whole time. I mean, the rates that we have now are bonkers. Yeah. And the other part of it too is that our lending practices are so much more stringent. We're actually seeing that, especially I would say for self-employed people, we're finding a lot of folks are getting turned away even because of the fact that they're really digging in on people's income and ensuring that those people can actually qualify for the loans they're buying, not just in the short-term context, but long-term, because banks don't want to see what happened then now.
Yeah, the focus on the individual borrowing as well as the property that the loan will be on. Banks are taking a harder look, a longer look at the properties and making sure that it's a sound investment for them.
The other big thing, again, in the lending department is that there's a much stronger push from lenders to push for what's called forbearance instead of foreclosure. Now, forbearance it's not a great option and I would really hesitate to recommend it to anyone unless you are in dire need of it. But it's essentially, we saw it happen a little bit during when everything was shut down last year. Forbearance is the bank's way of kind of helping to float people along. And so they add on effectively additional mortgage dollars in lieu of making those payments up front. So if someone can't pay their mortgage for 3 months, that just gets tacked on at the end. It can be beneficial. It can also be really problematic depending on how it gets set up. So definitely consult with a mortgage specialist before you agree to anything like that, or call me and or Patrik. We're happy to put you in touch with someone. But yeah, not something to go into lightly. And the big reason, in fact, why lenders are pushing for forbearance is that when all these homes foreclosed on, it was super difficult to move that inventory. In fact, there's still inventory left over from that time that never sold. The main contributing factor there was that at that time, what's called closing costs and prepaid credits, that wasn't really so much a thing at that time. Basically, the seller is allowed to credit back to the buyer out of net proceeds a certain dollar amount based on the buyer's closing costs and prepaid taxes. Previously, it was pretty wide open, and you didn't really have to declare what those funds were for. They didn't have to get figured out during the sale. The credits could just go to the buyer and they could do whatever with them. Usually they're meant for repairs. In fact, in most cases, that's the only reason why a seller would offer a credit like that to a buyer. But what would happen is that rather than getting those repairs done, the buyer would say, well, I could fix my leaky roof or I could buy a speedboat. And so cheap speedboat. But when they did that, they had all this deferred maintenance that would build up, and then eventually, when they got foreclosed on, those homes were in shambles. And so banks really don't want people to foreclose. That's the long story short here. The TLDR, banks don't want people to foreclose. They'd much rather give them the option of forbearance to allow them to stay in their homes and maintain that. But let's talk about where we're at right now. Let's talk about what is our market right now, and what is our kind of homeowner profile that we're seeing.
Well, I think probably the biggest risk to the market right now is around rates. But the reality is rates are low. The Federal Reserve is committed to keeping those rates as low as they can. Most industry professional and measurement groups are saying rates will only grow at a very slow rate. So I think we're seeing folks getting approved in the low threes, very low threes, sometimes even a 2. But by the end of the year, many industry groups are saying only 3.4% by the end of the year, and maybe 4 by the end of next year. So we're not seeing a lot of volatility with the rates as the people are prognosticating.
Yeah. I mean, our buyer is going to continue buying during that time. Our buyer is going to continue to have an interest in buying homes. You look at what interest rate were in the 90s, where people were getting a 12% interest rate or a 15% interest rate, or you look at 2 years ago or 3 years ago where people were getting a 5% interest rate and saying, yeah, 5%, that's great. It's crazy how low these interest rates are. I mean, people are saving, friends who are refinancing and saving thousands every single, thousands and thousands and thousands every year on just the change of their interest rate. Yeah. So that's massive, But so that's absolutely driving, the market right now in a big way, the interest rates that we're seeing. The other items that I think are really big right now, we are seeing just a massive influx of millennial home buyers hitting the market. So as of 2021, 37% of home buyers are millennials. The 14% of them are 21 to 30 and 31 to, is it 40? 31 to 39, I don't know. Older millennials are making up about 24% of that. So, this is a segment of buyers that were completely untapped up until now, and suddenly they're here. You look at that, you look at the fact that during COVID, and still now, people are getting vaccinated, but there was a lot of fear around the notion of having people walk through their homes who are total strangers, and I can't put my house on the market right now. So you have that. And then couple that with the cost of building materials being through the roof. I mean, I don't know if you've looked at wood lately, but maybe you should be investing in wood, because just new construction is at an all-time slowdown. So we're finding that not only is there not old, resale inventory available, but there's barely any new construction available. Plus home buyers who are just entering the market, a massive segment of home buyers, plus low interest rates, plus people working from home and deferring vacations. I mean, it's clear that this is sort of the new normal that we're heading into, to me at least. I think that's going to really be a long-term thing. COVID, as unfortunate as it is to say, I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. We're finding our balance, but it is likely going to encourage a lot more work from home behaviors. And when people work from home and they have extra money to burn because they're not traveling as much, they're more inclined to think about stuff like buying a house.
Another interesting thing about folks who are homeowners right now is we're seeing a big shift over the last several years where I think less than 3% of folks are in a negative equity situation. So meaning at that 3%, they owe more on their loan than their home is evaluated to be worth. And so that is a big shift from several years ago where a lot of folks were upside down.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tremendous difference. And why that's so important, that coupled with the fact that in 2020, roughly 40% of all homeowners own their homes free and clear. Why that's so important to recognize here is that people have equity. And equity isn't just, I guess I could have some money if I sold my house. It's, no, I can refinance my house and dip into that cash. There are ample funds available for these homeowners. And so realistically, even if they are, having a hard time professionally or whatever, there's still room for them to be able to stay on top of their lives if they were to refinance and take a cash out refi. And then, the other thing that came up for us that we've been seeing a lot, really specific to our market here in Portland, is just a tremendous influx of feeder cities. And if you haven't watched our Feeder Cities video, go check that out. But we have, all these incredibly affluent cities that are having their people moving here to Portland. So you have, places like New York City, San Francisco, Seattle, Chicago, people coming in and buying with cash. They're able to help justify the prices that are being spent and they're able to buy without having to worry about being upside down. And so, a lot of these people are moving here because I think that they're working from home. They're able to have more flexibility while maintaining the same source of income. And so that has afforded them the opportunity to relocate to somewhere they're more excited about. And so Portland's really exciting. And so I think that, for that, it's going to remain that way as long as people are really working from home, which is somewhat indefinite at this point. As long as Portland stays cool and weird. And then play with that, if we're talking about home prices and we're talking about when is the price going to suddenly drop? Again, we're looking at the amalgam of all this stuff. We're looking at wealthy people, really, really affluent people moving to Portland, continuing to buy, continuing to support the prices of homes that are being sold. We have low inventory, low interest rates, massive pool of buyers coming in. We have, what else do we have? Tremendous homeowner equity, so pretty minimal instances of foreclosure, maybe more instances of forbearance, and just a lot of interest. So in my hypothesis and our sort of talkings about this, because it comes up a lot, I think realistically what we'll find is that we'll see maybe a leveling.
Yeah, I think home prices will start to level, but demand is high, rates are low, equity's high, so it's sort of the perfect storm that makes it good for both buyers and sellers.
Yeah. I mean, there has to be, I hope, a limit on growth at a certain point. I think that we've hit a massive growth period. I don't anticipate we're going to see a massive decline. I think we're going to see a leveling. I think we're going to maybe see a fall off in buyers due to interest rates going up, or maybe we get really lucky and COVID goes away, which would be, when COVID goes away. That's right, staying hopeful. Hashtag hopeful. I think we'll probably find that home buying will level. And I think that we'll maybe find a more balanced market in the coming years. In the next 2 years, probably not. The next 3 years, probably not, but who knows? It's hard to say. Again, just our opinions.
So the TLDR, are we going to have another housing bubble? Are we shaping up for another housing bubble?
I don't think so. I don't believe so. And, this is not an expert opinion. I'm not an economist. We're not experts on, we don't track things in the way that some people do, but this is really based on our industry understanding, based on, us working in the market every single day and seeing the demand and knowing the statistics around these things, rough statistics, and knowing where we came from in the market. It's still a good time to buy.
It's still a great time to buy.
And it's an incredible time to sell. So definitely sell your house, even if it's the Pulaski said the right time to sell. It's always the right time to sell.
Always.
Right now, any house, regardless. Is it a good time to buy? I think so. I mean, if you can capture a good interest rate right now, you're in a great spot. And, I think what it comes down to more than anything is your comfort level for getting into this market. Are you willing to compete? Are you willing to, overpay by your own perception?
Sure. But also finding the right person to be your advocate, help you understand the market, set you up for success, and help you set your offer up to be one that floats to the top.
Yeah. And honestly, today's overpayers are tomorrow's, not overpayers. I don't know how else to put that. You could buy a house. We had clients who bought houses in the summer, and there was a feeling of dread. It was oh my God, we went $60,000 over the asking price. Now there's not a single house in that neighborhood that they bought in that's selling for less than $80,000 more than what they bought it for. So, roughly $80,000 of gained equity in the time frame between when they bought in the summer and now. Just for context, I think we'll likely continue to see the market rise. I just, be mindful about what you're buying, be mindful of what you're investing in, make sure it's a quality property and that you're not just throwing money away arbitrarily. Get good consultants in the process, make sure that they're advocating for you effectively and that your comfort levels are measured in how you're processing this stuff, and you're not making emotional decisions, but informed and measured, level-headed decisions, and you'll do just fine. All right, that's gonna do it for us. Thanks so much for joining. We really enjoyed talking about the market with you, and we hope that you got some good information out of it. If you ever have any questions, you just want to talk through whether it's a good time to buy or sell, or whatever, maybe you just want to figure out what a good paint color is for your kitchen, feel free to hit us up. We're always happy to chat, and as always, feel free to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one. All right, have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.